Well, we've almost made it. It is the second to last Advent tea year video. It is December 23rd, and we have a very simple plain red box today. And I guess that's kind of fitting because today's tea is Valerian Nights. So you can see it's a very light colored tea here through the top of the tin. And this particular tea has 0 caffeine, which I did expect because it is called Valerian Nights, and I know a little bit about Valerian, and I will actually mention a little bit about that later. And this will steep at 95 degrees Celsius for 5+ minutes, so you know the drill. I'm gonna go ahead and smell, look at it, go through the ingredients, and get that steep going. So. It's nuttier in smell than I would expect a Valerian tea to be. Valerian, especially when it's dried, some people think has a little bit of a mature cheese odor, or as some people have called it, a stinky foot odor. But this actually smells quite a bit like coconut, and as I go through the ingredients, we will see quite clearly why. This tea has apple, roasted coconut, rooibos, chamomile, caramel pieces, sweet blackberry leaves, natural coconut flavoring, valerian root, and natural caramel and sweet blackberry leaf flavoring. So we've got some nice, varied sizes here. All right. So that's going to be some apple there. These white chunks are actually that coconut. So that's going to be that, the coconut flesh, the dried coconut flesh. And more apple. Valerian root, I'm guessing, is going to be a little bit more of that grassy bit that's in here, along with the rooibos, because those are going to be the actual leaf bits. Here is a bit of chamomile, which we have seen before, so there's that little flower of the chamomile again. And do I have any caramel pieces in this particular pull? Doesn't look like I have any caramel bits in here. I just pulverized a bit of chamomile there, but that doesn't mean that they're not there. I'm going to go ahead and get this steeping. I'm back to using the coffee filter here because my 2 muslin tea bags really need a good, much deeper wash. They're both smelling a bit too much like other teas, and so they are likely to pollute what I'm expecting will be a very, very light-bodied tea. So we're trying to get this into my little makeshift envelope, which in and of itself is going to end up being comical because I am getting tea particulates everywhere. Particle tea. Anyway, all right, that'll work. We're gonna go ahead and fold that over once, twice, loop the loose ends back here. And we're gonna hope that holds. All right, let's go ahead and measure. That's unfolding a tiny bit, but hopefully it will be okay. So the main ingredient that I'm going to talk about today is Valerian, because when you look at that ingredients list, it's a little bit like a best hits list, or kind of thing of all these ingredients where I've already talked about pretty much most of them. So we'll talk about Valerian, which is actually fitting because I'm pretty sure that you are all tired. I mean, I feel it. I'm tired. This has been a really weird year. It's been hard to feel like you can catch your breath or anything like that. And I know that a lot of people have been struggling with mental health, with feeling rested, with feeling like they are at all in balance with their own bodies. So I hear you. And so we're going to keep it simple. We're just talking about Valerian. That's all. And, I'd love it if I could try and, make this feel magical. I won't be able to, but Valerian Nights made me immediately think of, the Arabian Nights, a story. So, if we want to parody this, our tale begins not quite on a dark night, and probably not where a dark man waits. And almost certainly, if there is a man waiting, he does not wait with a dark purpose. Instead, we travel to the ancient times of Greece and Rome when Hippocrates, from Greece, known today for his oath, he is the person that we get the Hippocratic Oath from, described the properties of valerian as a medicinal herb, and also the time when Galen, or Claudius Galenus, a surgeon philosopher of ancient Rome, prescribed it as a remedy for insomnia. So that's why I knew to expect that there was no caffeine in this particular tea, because valerian is often used as a sleep aid. One of my personal favorite teas is the Celestial Seasoning Sleepy Time, and one of the primary ingredients in that tea is also valerian. So that's one reason I knew to expect that. Now, from the ancient times, you move a long time, and so by the time it reaches Sweden, the medieval era, it had actually gained a more mystical reputation as an herb to ward off the envy of the elves. And it was used inside the wedding clothes of the groom. So if you're thinking about valerian in tea, you're thinking, what were they doing and how were they getting it into his clothes? But remember, valerian is a plant. So it would be sewn into the clothes using use the stem as a way to get it attached or put into the buttonhole, those kinds of things, as a symbol of good fortune, prosperity, and protection against evil and jealous spirits. Now, nevertheless, valerian did also remain a go-to curative for croup and other convulsions, and also for bruising. It was valued as a medicine by the poor in the north of England and in southern Scotland, where they would add it frequently to broths and soups. And it probably actually helps us with the idea that when you're sick, you feel better when you eat homemade chicken soup, right? It's the idea that something homemade is the best medicine for the soul, and especially in that region, valerian was added to those soups and broths to help calm and soothe and ease a lot of other physical ailments and pains. Research, however, is actually ongoing to pinpoint exactly what it is in valerian that contributes to the supposed sedative effect. Thus far, we know that the valerianic acid stimulates serotonin receptors, and it does so as a partial agonist, which includes the 5-HT5A, which is a specific receptor chemical that's implicated in the sleep-wake cycle. So there's some evidence to suggest that it does play a role in helping with that cycle. However, despite that position in the traditional medicine as a cure for insomnia, there's actually no good evidence for this purpose, nor has valerian been shown to be helpful in treating restless leg syndrome, which would be some of those convulsions that the medieval era used the valerian for, or for anxiety. So it's considered a go-to, but again, there's the evidence is actually lacking. And that said, the European Medicines Agency, EMA, has approved the health claim that valerian can be used as a traditional herbal medicine to relieve tension and aid sleep, and that's actually due to some of the more plausible effectiveness when you have it as a dried extract rather than eating it or using it when it is a little fresher. So that would include and extend to the use in tea. Now, do use caution with valerian because it is a central nervous system depressant. So it's help calming you down. That's what depressants do. So do not combine it with others if you can avoid it. And definitely be cautious if you find that you're hypersensitive to it, because in hypersensitive individuals, it can lead to hepatotoxicity, which is going to affect functioning of your liver. But in general, valerian's actually pretty darn safe. Again, like with everything, don't go overboard. Moderation in everything. And of course, always check how things are going to interact. Now, beyond its supposedly soporific impact on humans, valerian is actually also a cat attractant. It has similar effects on cats to what catnip does. That said, my current cats, I've not seen them go crazy when I've offered them to smell my sleepy time tea before, and neither one of them is currently in here to mess around with my tea. But I did have a cat a few years ago who did quite like sleepy time and loved valerian, just would stick her feet in it all the time. So definitely varies cat to cat, just like catnip does. But looking at it from a plant-wise standpoint, it is a perennial plant. It is native to Europe and to Asia, and it has sweetly scented pink or white flowers. And the flowers are actually interesting on valerian because they show handedness, which means that they don't have radial symmetry or bilateral symmetry. So you can have, when you think about your hand, right, you don't have radial or bilateral symmetry on here. So that's the way that the valerian flowers actually are as well. And with that, the root was dried happily ever after and found its way into today's tea. So I am going to be carefully trying to pull this out of my tea so that way I don't get all the particulates into the tea. I have a couple, but I've had a couple the last few times, even with my muslin bag. So, and yes, this is actually quite warm as I'm trying to squeeze out the moisture. However, doing it as a little envelope did actually work pretty well. So you can see it's a pretty nice gold color, and I've seen that to be the case with other teas that have valerian in them. And it's really got a clear liquor. You can see down to the bottom of the cup. You can see down to where those little particulates are. Yeah, it's a nice, mellow tea, which is nice going into the hecticness that is often the holiday season. So the smell here is actually a lot more muted. It's very, very subtle. I can still smell a little bit of that coconut, but it's pretty well faded after I've gone through that steep here. So it is a very light flavored tea. When I'm thinking about it, I do get coconut notes predominantly. I also get a little bit of that rooibos weirdness that I've mentioned. I mentioned it on day 2 with the cinnamon rooibos chai. I don't know how to describe it. There's just something that doesn't, it's almost bitter, but not quite. And on that particular one, I mostly just got that coconut flavor. So in general, this actually is a very light, pleasant kind of tea. It tastes very lightly of coconut, and I don't really have any complaints about it. It's not going to be a high-ranking tea because it doesn't really blow me out of the water, but it's also not a tea that I'm going to make a face at. So it's a very staunchly middle-of-the-road tea. So with that, I am finished with today's video, a little bit on the shorter side. So I hope that you take that extra time, read a book, make your own cup of tea, whatever. And I will see you tomorrow for the final day of the Advent year. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Bye.